KFI, Mr. Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. We have a lot of local news that we have to cover. And in fact, if you didn't see the story about Governor Gavin Newsom, he's in the news today, just to give you a little preview. He's in the news today regarding some remarks that he made, which seemingly were out of step with California politics. Governor Gavin Newsom has called trans athletes in sports unfair. And he said it on his own podcast with conservative commentator, and I would say troll, Charlie Kirk. Before the bottom of the hour, or actually at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to tell you some things that no one else has told you. Everyone, for the most part, has gotten that story wrong, and they're focusing in on the remarks themselves and not the bigger picture. If you've been paying close attention, if you've been listening to this show, I know you've been paying close attention. The subtlety, the details, what Governor Gavin Newsom right now has everything to do with his presidential aspirations and absolutely nothing to do with the remarks that he had on his own podcast regarding trans athletes. So that's coming up at the bottom of the hour. Also, remember, we've been talking about these targeted, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, boycotts, trying to change the conversation regarding DEI. Well, there is a 40-day Target boycott, which started today. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. Some good, some bad, but it's another opportunity to help those out there who might be of the business of boycotting or creating some sort of campaign for awareness. I got some good news for you. You're still getting it wrong, but there's a way that you can get it right. Very quickly, since we know that we had rain today, the traffic was horrible for everyone today. It's still horrible. Right now, you probably, wherever you're going, just add another 45 minutes to an hour, wherever you're going. I don't care if you're going down the street. It's going to be an hour more.
The forecast calls for a 50% chance of rain tonight, but on my way in, it pretty much seemed like it was at 100%.
But you made it here safely. It took you a lot longer than usual. I saw you walk in, I would say a good half hour later.
Yeah, you know me, I'm a creature of habit, and I do the same thing every single day, and I get here pretty much at the same time every day. This weather's been awful for that. For anybody with OCD, you like to be on time. No good, no bueno.
I'm very much OCD. I had to leave a good hour earlier, and I don't like that because that throws off everything I plan to do in my day prior to that point, because I'm not expecting to leave in the 2:00 hour to get to the office. But I did it anyway, so I wouldn't have to rush, so I wouldn't stress, so I wouldn't put myself in danger and worry about getting into an accident, hydroplaning, dealing with the idiots on the freeway, because when I was driving, when I got on the road, it had just started raining for the day. It was pretty much a pretty beautiful day from where I was. But then around, I want to say 2:00 or so, it started raining.
Oh, there's some thrill seekers out on the road. And I had to administer some one-finger discipline runners to somebody on the way in here.
He doesn't want to use that term anymore.
I know, we're going to use it.
Yeah.
I've never called that by my name. That's inappropriate. If I'm going to use it.
Because that was going to be my question, if either of you two administered any runners today.
No, I don't do that. That's him.
I gave this other driver the panoramic finger today.
Ooh, like, wow, all the way around the car?
Yeah, start in the front
like
windshield.
You start like a whole.
Yeah, exactly. You follow it all the way around until it's out of your sight line.
Eventually, someone is going to recognize you or realize that it is you. And they'll probably say, "Don't you dare give me a runner."
No. I'm the most average human on the planet. I could be an undercover agent anywhere easily because I am undistinguished in every respect.
You do know they've invented the internet thanks to Al Gore and other people, right?
Yeah, I did. I'd be lost in a crowd. You couldn't pick me out of a lineup.
Okay, if you say so. Until they can pick you out of a lineup for giving someone a runner.
Oh man, they gave me a runner.
By the way, this blaming of the victim is really a sign of low character on your part. I don't appreciate this.
I'll allow that. I am of low character. Yeah.
Petty.
Petty Crocker.
Petty Crocker.
To the day I die. Got some other news as far as the beach is concerned. You know, I'm not real big on going in the water. But when I saw this story, which was in the Orange County Register, just want to do a quick mention on this, that the Huntington Beach, the actual beach was closed down for the past 24 hours. I think it might even be open now. But there was a jumping shark sighting, a great white jumping shark sighting. Now, see, you could have just stopped at shark. That would have been sufficient. You could have just said it was a great white. That would have been sufficient. You could have said it was a great white that was running, I don't know, skipping, sauntering, meandering, gallivanting. That would have been fine. And I would have gotten the message to stay my ass out of the water. But then when you say a jumping great white shark, I'm saying like, 1, when do they get feet? 2, how high can it jump? 3, let me know from a distance because I'm not going to go to Huntington Beach to find out. True story. A shark was spotted jumping out of the water early yesterday in Huntington Beach, and Huntington Beach, at least at that point, had shut down a stretch of the ocean until at least earlier this morning. It might be open by now. But the shark was seen circling the surf line and was identified as a great white, estimated to be 6 to 7 feet long. And after it was seen jumping out of the water, I guess it landed back in the water and then headed north. I don't need to know where it was going. I don't need to know anything about it. I don't need to know its name. I don't need to know its disposition. I don't need to know if it plans to come back in the future. The fact that it was there and jumping out of the water is hint enough for my ass to not go in the water. That's why I know I'm never going to die in a shark attack unless I'm on a cruise ship and it's named the SS Titanic. It goes down and we're in the water. That's about the only way I'm dying in a shark attack.
Would you ever go down underwater in a shark cage?
No.
No?
I've seen Jaws. They bust right through those things. No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. I don't have that thrill seeker in me at all. Not even a little bit. I'm not even casually curious. I have a number of friends who snorkel and they scuba and they'll send me all the great pictures. Shout out to Kim Richards of the Boys and Girls Club, president and CEO, for example. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to get scuba certified. I'm not doing free diving. I'm not even going out to the water in my waist high. I'm not doing any of that. And that's how I know I will not die in a shark attack.
Now, when you said shark jumping, I thought it might have been a Fonzie sighting.
No, we're talking about a shark jumping, not jumping the shark.
Well, the cool thing about that was Fonzie went skiing in his leather jacket.
Hey, Stefan, are you old enough to get that reference?
That's like, yeah, I get it.
Okay, I just want to make sure because that's where the phrase jumping the shark comes from.
Youth is no excuse for ignorance, Mo. Never.
Oh, I know. But I want to give people a chance to at least disabuse me of that notion.
I always thought, I wonder what people thought in the moment.
I can tell you because I watched it live on TV the night it aired. I remember.
What did you think?
I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
See?
It was Fonzie in a leather jacket
jumping
on skis, jumping over a shark pit.
Yeah. That was right up there with Evel Knievel, Bionic Man. It was awesome.
It was in the age of the Daredevil. So within the context of America in the 1970s, it absolutely made sense. It absolutely made sense. Yeah. But if you knew the trajectory of the show, Happy Days, they had run out of stories to tell.
Clearly.
I'm sure it was a free vacation. I think they went to Hawaii or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a free vacation for the cast, and it was great for them. But as far as the TV show, and I do remember they heavily publicized it. It was a big deal back then.
Yeah, because it was them leaving their home to be on vacation.
Their soundstage.
Right,
Yes.
Right. Because you only saw them at the Cunningham House and Al's.
And the
diner. That was it. I can't think of another location where I saw them. I'm quite sure there were.
No, they were up in Fonzie's garage, and when he turned it into a home
that's right, because him and Pinky Tuscadero.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why I remember that, other than the fact that she was fine.
Everybody remembers Pinky.
You remember Pinky Tuscadero.
Yeah.
Fine. Oh my goodness. It's like, who's that? Don't get me wrong. I know this is a big digression. Joni was cute, but Pinky was fine.
Yeah.
So there was Pinky and there was also Leather Tuscadero, right?
Now that I don't
Weren't
remember.
there a couple Tuscaderos?
They were like sisters or something?
Yeah.
It was a family.
But see, Pinky is what you remember.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what you remember.
I remember everything about Pinky.
Wasn't Susie Quattro Pinky?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know the actual.
That's too deep.
Yeah.
Okay. All
I
right.
just remember Pinky was like, Fonzie, you better bag that.
Fonzie was bagging everything. Are you kidding me?
Hey.
KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And I learned something today in this news business. And no, I'm not a news person, but I talk about the news. And even though I may immerse myself in the news, there are often times where I come across things that I had no idea. No idea. And as a homeowner, this is real important to me and to you. And depending on how old your house is, this is something that you need to take seriously. Did you know, let's say your house was constructed before 1980. Your house may have a vulnerability of your house sliding off its foundation. And if your house was built pre-1940, it absolutely has that vulnerability. Yes, your house can slide off your foundation, especially during a severe earthquake. In Southern California, there are tens of thousands of homes that are not built to withstand a major earthquake. Yeah, there's all types of retrofitting, but this particular retrofit needs to be done on a lot of houses. These houses were built on a foundation, but not actually secured to the foundation. And if you don't need to be a geologist to understand the shaking of the ground can have the shaking of the house, move the house off the foundation or slightly off the foundation, can shift it. And to avoid this, California is now offering a simple solution, or they say it's a simple solution, that could save your house. It's called the Earthquake Brace and Bolt Program. Earthquake Brace and Bolt Program. Here's how it goes. The program is going to be for those people who apply, and you could receive up to $3,000 for the Earthquake Brace and Bolt Program. It is not first come, first serve. You have to fill out an application, and then the powers that be, it's a program through FEMA. They will then either provide a grant or not relative to your needs and analyze your house. And you can get a grant up to $3,000 if you qualify to use towards the earthquake retrofit. I don't know how much it's going to cost outright, but I suspect it's more than $3,000.
It is, but that's a good start. I know our house is retrofitted. We got the braces and bolting and all of that done about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to know, are they giving any kickbacks to anyone who's got that? Because can we submit and say, hey, we did it. You can kick that $3,000 back into the pot.
Ooh, no, that's a good question.
A good question, right?
Yeah. Because let's say I did it last year. Prior to the program. Can I get a little bit of help here? That would be interesting to see. I honestly do not know this, but the program starts on the 26th of this month. You can apply for the program starting then. And my house, I don't have to worry about it because it was built in 2019. But my mother's house, and this is where it comes in that I did not know, was built in the 50s. So that's something I would sit her down and say, hey, what was the last work that was done on the foundation or the house? Because you may not think about it. I didn't think about it. The house has withstood all sorts of earthquakes, but it may not be earthquake compliant in regard to the brace and bolt.
Now, one reason why many individuals started getting the bracing and bolting done on their homes a few years back is because that's when the refinancing and refi home loans were at such prime or so low
the subprime
that
crisis?
You could, well, not even that, but the interest rates on refinancing were so low. But one of the things in certain areas, especially in Altadena, that was a requirement is that you get that done. You have to get that done in order to refinance your home because they're like, your house is in danger of sliding off the foundation if you don't.
It's interesting, if only because when people think of California in a grand sense, you think about disasters, the first thing that usually comes to mind, earthquakes. Now you got to think about fires, or we're more actively thinking about fires, flooding, we've always thought about mudslides to a certain degree, but now you can't just think of home preservation and protection, just earthquakes. I mean, and I need not tell you, Twala, more than anyone, thinking about just fire insurance and flooding insurance. We have people who may have survived the fires in terms of their home, but then they may be dealing with flooding right now. Or they may deal with the mudslides a week after this rain, because this is not an ordinary rain. We couldn't get just a little bit of rain spread out over 3 or 4 weeks. It all has to come at one time. So this is something I am going to sit down with my mother. She might even be listening right now, and see the status of her house, which was built in the 1950s. I'm pretty sure the 1950s. So this is something all of us should take to heart. If your home was built pre-1980, this may apply to you. Your house may have this vulnerability. And if it's pre-1940, you might as well assume that it does have this vulnerability, as it was not a part of the building code. And there may be $3,000, which is available for you to use to get this brace and bolting done to make sure your house does not slide off its foundation. And the program is through FEMA, as I said, and it begins on March 26th. I'm quite sure you can find it. I don't have the website, but I'm quite sure you can find it. You all are pretty smart out there, except for baby Mark. It's Later with Mo Kelly.
Hey.
I got to take a free shot at you every now and then.
A cheap shot?
Well, what other kind is there?
What other kind are you capable of?
KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about this conversation between Governor Gavin Newsom and conservative commentator Charlie Kirk on Newsom's podcast, and how I think most of the media has got the story wrong, spending so much time talking about what they said, but not looking at the bigger political picture and strategy here. We'll get into that next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Governor Gavin Newsom, I don't think it's any secret. He's probably running for president. Excuse me. Let me just say, he's running for president in 2028. He's already started. He just hasn't officially announced. The story broke today that Governor Newsom, on his podcast, full disclosure, it's on the iHeartRadio network, on his podcast, This is Gavin Newsom, interviewed conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. And you may think, well, why would he be doing that? But that's getting buried, because the story right now is what was said on the podcast, where Governor Newsom called trans athletes in sports, quote unquote, unfair. In other words, there was a moment of agreement between Charlie Kirk and Governor Newsom. Every story that you'll see about this will focus on the trans athletes, the discussion of trans women in sports. They're missing the larger picture. And I haven't heard it anywhere else, so I think I'm going to be the first to give it to you. Do not get caught up in the content of the conversation. What you should recognize is the positioning which is going on. You have Governor Gavin Newsom, who's trying to build a podcast audience. Instead of having an official press conference, he will be able to drop an episode each and every week and say whatever he wants for as long as he wants about whatever topic he chooses to cover, and then speak to any audience he so chooses. And you will see, think of it this way. Is it newsworthy if Governor Newsom were to sit down with some progressive or liberal or left-leaning pundit? Absolutely not. It would just be an agreement fest. But sitting down with Charlie Kirk, that'll raise some eyebrows. That'll get some coverage. And if they find some agreement, wow, that'll get some coverage. And then you see, I would say, the 21st century iteration of presidential candidates using non-traditional media more and more. In the way that there was a lot of criticism of Kamala Harris not sitting down with Joe Rogan, you have the actual presidential candidate, presumably, creating his own podcast space and developing his own audience years in advance of the actual election. And then also sitting down with theoretically, ideologically opposed individuals, and to create and craft an identity which is probably opposite of how he's usually portrayed in the media. When you sit down with Charlie Kirk and you find some quote unquote common ground and agreement, then all of a sudden, Gavin Newsom can try to purport or portray himself as someone who's not as far left as people would have you believe. This is about crafting an image. It's not about whether you believe it. It's about realizing what he's doing long-term, big picture. But all the stories you're going to see is about them talking about trans athletes and how supposedly Governor Gavin Newsom found common ground with someone who's way, way to the right. Don't miss what is happening here. This is about crafting an image which is left perceived as far left than anything else. Here's the actual audio. It's a little bit long, but it's important to get all the context. And then you realize, oh my gosh, they're not yelling and screaming at each other.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness. So it's deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you. By the way, as someone with 4 kids, I think
and two daughters, right?
2 daughters.
And I have a daughter too.
And a wife that went, God forbid, to Stanford and played on the junior national soccer team, and a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit or hit the ball for a little bit. So I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Not weaponize. Don't. That's
well, weaponize may be pejorative. You're right, but you were able to
shine a light on,
highlight it in a way that, frankly, there are not that many out. We're talking about, I think, NC2A, what, 510,000? No, but I just didn't realize.
It's 890 medals and trophies that we know of in the last 5 years. That's a lot.
No, so let me step back, say completely fair on the issue of fairness. I completely agree. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed on the issue?
No, I get it.
At the same time, deal with the unfairness.
So you asked a good faith question, like how do we Democrats get out of the wilderness?
Yeah.
This one is an 80-20 issue. New York Times poll, right? That's
I agree with you. We're getting crushed on. Crushed.
And you have an opportunity in the state to be like, look, I have a heart for A.B. Hernandez. I have a heart for the San Jose volleyball player.
Yeah.
Let's give them compassion. What's not fair is just for like entire woman's sports.
I agree. By the way, I agree with you.
See, all that agreement? Did you catch that? How you take the rough edge off of Gavin Newsom, at least in a presentation manner? And it's not about whether he's going to convince someone to vote for him today. This is about a process which is going to be going on all the way through 2027 into 2028. It's just now 2025. He's going to very slowly, I don't know how successfully, but this is very deliberate. He's going to soften his edges and his appearance and presence and make himself more amenable, seemingly more reasonable in his attempts to become president of the United States. Whether people buy it or not, that's up to y'all. I'm just saying, recognize the strategy. It's as clear as day. This is his second podcast episode. And basically, straight out the box, he's sitting down with Charlie Kirk. That tells you the direction that he's headed. It's not about agreeing with someone all the time. He's trying to portray himself as less left and more reasonable than how he's been perceived and portrayed by the media and also his actions and his legislative decisions in the past. See it for what it is. Don't get caught up in, they agree on trans athletes. No. That's a misdirection. This is about Gavin Newsom running for president. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640, live everywhere, the iHeartRadio app. There is a proposed, actually should say it's underway, a new Target boycott, which is now underway, and it's scheduled for 40 days. It's better but it's not going to be successful. Again, I'll tell you why, but at least it's moving in the right direction.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And we talked about the one-day boycott last Friday of Target, Walmart, Amazon, other big box retailers. And I said, just to quickly review, I said, you're wasting everyone's time. You're not going to make an impact. You're not going to make a dent by having a one-day boycott, which was non-specific, unfocused, and it wasn't clear as far as the ask. And it wasn't going to be joined in by everyone. And something I forgot to mention, in as much as people may say, I'm not going to go to Target, I'm not going to go to Amazon, I'm not going to go to a Walmart, you have people on the other side of the coin and the spectrum who say, well, you know what? I'm going to shop there just to make sure that the boycott doesn't have any impact. You may remember a similar phenomena happened with Chick-fil-A. You had the boycott of Chick-fil-A, and then you had people who wanted to support Chick-fil-A in opposition to the boycott, and there were lines of people. I remember covering it, went to see it in person. There were lines of people out the door of most Chick-fil-A's because you had a competing interest wanting to support. That's another reason why a one-day boycott would never be successful or impactful. What began yesterday was a 40-day boycott, which was organized by Reverend Jamal Bryant, an Atlanta area megachurch pastor. If you're not familiar with him, he's very big in the African-American community, and he has called for this 40-day boycott basically through the time of Lent, and it began yesterday. Here's the good news. Here's the bad news. Think of boycotts like diets. The longer that you're able to maintain the diet or the change in how you eat, the better your results will be. Long term. If you're only going to diet for a day, don't expect much. 40 days, that's probably better. You'll probably see some results. But imagine if you did it in perpetuity or until your grievances are addressed and or demands are met. That's how you're supposed to do it. 40 days is better than one, but 40 days is not going to break Target. Yes, their revenue has been down. Why? Because people have been feeling some kind of way about Target and have been naturally pulling themselves back from Target for months now. For months. And you see that Target has been most adversely affected because people have kind of coalesced around Target. Well, you may ask, well, why Target? Because historically, or at least in recent years, Target had done a much more visible job of reaching out to various communities, African-American community included. They would feature products by Black business people and inventors and people who had products to sell, and they were prominently featured within Target. And for Target to pull back, I think it was taken as much more personal as opposed to these other retailers. So Target has been bearing the brunt of this fight as the pushback to DEI continues. So a 40-day Target boycott has been proposed. It started yesterday. Will it be successful? I don't know, but I do know the longer you stick with anything, the more likely you're going to have success, because there's going to be an ebb and flow to this. There are going to be some days where people are like, oh, I forgot there's a boycott at Target. I shouldn't have gone, but I need to pick up this. There are going to be some days in which the enthusiasm will wane, and you need to be able to ride that out. It's easy to focus for one day. And a business knows that if we can get past one day, it's smooth sailing. Or in this case, it's a little bit easier to wrap your mind around if it's just 40 days. If your target is like, okay, let's see if we can ride this out for 40 days, and then we can get back to business as usual. When it is open-ended and there's no telling when the boycott will end, and you can demonstrate your consistency and also commitment to a 40-day plus boycott, not just 40 days, open-ended, I promise you, history is rife with examples that businesses will start listening to your demands. Like, for example, If someone told you this is how long you have to hold out for this, that, or the other, what are you going to do? You're going to hold out. I always like to use dating comparisons. And I know this is very crass, so let me just get this out of the way. It's going to be crass. As a man, I'll just use myself as an example so no one else will feel uncomfortable. As a man in my 20s, if a woman I want to date said, I don't have sex on the first date, it's got to be at least the third date. What does that tell you as a man? What does that tell you? We got to at least get to the third date. If we can just stay in the game to the third date, I'm in there in more ways than one. Don't you dare laugh at me, Stefan, and not give me a rim shot. Don't you don't you dare. Don't you dare. Crass it may be.
Fair enough.
But my point is, in any negotiation, don't tell them how long you're willing to fight, or don't tell them how long you're willing to hold out. Don't tell them how long the boycott is going to be and expect your full results. It's got to be open-ended. 40 days is better than 20. Absolutely. 20 days is better than 10. 10 is better than 1. But if you leave it open-ended, you have given yourself the best opportunity of having a major retailer actually acquiesce to your demands, because they're going to feel the pain, hopefully, in perpetuity. Not for just 40 days, but for months. 40 days doesn't even cover a quarterly earnings call. So if they hold out for 40 days, in theory, they may be able to recover before the next earnings call. You want them to feel that pain. You want them to have to report that pain and respond to that pain. When I say report that pain, report to shareholders that, yes, our earnings are well below expectations. The stock price has dropped, and we're going to have to do something to change the direction of our next projections, our next prospectus. That will give you the type of response that you want. But if you limit it to 40 days, you give corporations the key to holding out. You give them some sort of guide as to how long or how effective a boycott can be or will be. It's got to be like the Montgomery bus boycott. I keep coming back to that. That was open-ended. They were going to boycott the bus line until, period, until, not one day, not 40 days, and announce it, but it was going to be in perpetuity until the bus line changed and allowed black people to ride at the front of the bus. If you want to have that level of success, you need to have that level of commitment. You have to be certain in everything that you do, and you can't limit yourselves and give the boycotted a store an out by letting them know in advance when it ends. You told them with 1 day, and now you're telling them again with the 40 days. Until you get to the point of it being open-ended, you will continue to fall short. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640 live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
Prepare to be stimulated. KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live.